Our daughter has become completely spoiled due to my husband's indulgence. As I was fretting over this, I overheard my daughter and husband speaking ill of me. Angrily, I confronted them, and my husband James just laughed.
You heard her, right? She says she hates you.
Then my daughter Angelica chimed in.
Yeah, that's right. I hate you, Mommy. Go away, you mean witch.
You shouldn't talk like that. Meanwhile, James just shrugged and said to her,
There she goes again. Mom's always nagging, huh?
I can't stand having her as a mom. I wish it was just you and me, Daddy.
That was my breaking point. I wondered if there was any point in staying a family after being spoken to like that. I didn't care what happened anymore. I managed to smile and said, All right then, the scary mom will disappear. Please stay tuned for the turbulent story that unfolds next. My name is Kate, a 35-year-old working mother, balancing child rearing and my career as a tax accountant, currently employed at a local firm. My husband James and I met 7 years ago at a so-called matching party. He was quite popular there, being tall, handsome, and having a decent job. I never thought I stood a chance, but to my surprise, he approached me at the end of the party.
You're a tax accountant, right, Kate? I've always thought if I got married, I'd want a reliable woman. Would you like to go out for dinner sometime?
I agreed, surprised but pleased. That's how my relationship with James began, leading to a proposal after a year. By then, he had become irreplaceable to me. We visited his parents' home far away, and they were kind and welcoming. Next, we went to my parents' house.
Wow, Kate, you snagged such a handsome guy.
Go ahead and marry him. My mother was a career woman, and my father was gentle and calm. With their blessing, we got married. After the wedding, we rented a place equidistant from our workplaces. However, James hardly did any housework after we got married. Even when I asked for help, he'd say,
You can handle it, Kate,
and wouldn't lift a finger. I was frustrated, but ended up doing all the housework while working full-time. Soon, I got pregnant. He was overjoyed.
Yes. Will it be a boy or a girl? I hope it's a girl. She'll definitely be cute because she's my daughter.
You're getting ahead of yourself, James. I'm going to need a lot of support with the baby coming.
Leave it to me.
But during my pregnancy, he never took over the housework. He did, however, like to show off, accompanying me to prenatal checkups and parenting classes, making a good impression on my parents. I was frustrated by his superficial charm. Eventually, our daughter Angelica was born. But he didn't help with childcare, as expected. To be exact, he does take care of her.
Oh, you're so cute. My sweet Angelica.
He only played with her when she was in a good mood. He left the essential tasks, like making milk or changing diapers, to me. On top of that, he would upload photos on social media to appear like he was actively involved in parenting. I was frustrated with him for only wanting to take the good parts of parenting. Time flew, and Angelica was already 5 years old. I had been extremely busy with work for the past 2 years, often leaving childcare to him. But that meant I woke up early to do all the housework and prepare dinner, storing it in the fridge. He would pick her up from daycare in the evening, feed her the dinner I prepared, and look after her until bedtime. However, he never did any housework during this time. Most nights, I got home just before 9 p.m., after she was already asleep. As she grew older, he became increasingly harsh towards me, and our relationship became more distant. He even started badmouthing me to Angelica. One night, I got home at 9 p.m. and found Angelica still awake, playing on her tablet. "You're still up? It's way past your bedtime." James, meanwhile, was lying on the sofa, absorbed in his phone, ignoring her. "James, didn't I ask you to put her to bed by 8:30?
The nag is back.
Looking at the dining table, I saw the dinner I had made for her. She had eaten only the chicken and bread, leaving all the vegetables untouched. "What's this? Angelica, you haven't eaten any vegetables." Angelica, still focused on her tablet, replied,
"But I don't like veggies."
I knelt down in front of her and said, "Listen, Angelica. To grow up healthy, you need to eat veggies without being picky. Let's make sure you eat them from now on."
"No."
James then interjected.
What's the big deal? Let her eat what she likes, right, Angelica?
"Yeah, Daddy. I only want candy and meat."
James, that's not helping her.
Ugh, scary mom alert. Angelica, let's ignore her and go to bed with Daddy.
"Yeah, I'll sleep with Daddy. I love Daddy."
With that, he carried her off to the bedroom. I started cleaning up and began the housework, my body tired. He always coddled her, but never touched the important aspects of discipline and education. Yet on social media, he posted things like,
Daddy's girl loves me and I love her too.
She was completely spoiled by him, showing me no respect. Whenever I tried to discipline her, she would sulk immediately. My job only got busier, and I had to leave her with him more often on weekends. He took her to game arcades and out for meals, further spoiling her. She became increasingly defiant, even towards me. I knew I had to do something about this. Then, an incident occurred. I returned home about an hour earlier than usual and heard them talking in the living room.
Hey, Angelica, do you love me?
"Yeah, I love you, Daddy. You're nice and let me play lots of games. You even buy me candy."
That's right. I love you, so I'm nice to you. What do you think of Mommy?
"Ew, I don't like Mommy. She always gets angry and is a mean witch."
Ah, you remember the words I taught you. Mommy is mean to you because she doesn't like you. That's why she's mean to you.
I couldn't take it anymore and stormed into the room. James, what are you telling Angelica?
Oh, you were home.
James, surprised at first, then smirked.
You heard her, right? Angelica says she hates you.
Then Angelica joined in.
"That's right. I hate you, Mommy. Go away, you mean witch."
Angelica, you can't talk like that to me. I said this angrily, and James just shrugged and told her.
Oh, there she goes again, nagging.
"I can't stand having her as a mom. I wish it was just you and me, Daddy."
That's when I reached my limit. So, is there even a point in staying a family if it's come to this? I don't care anymore. I contained my anger and managed a smile. Understood. The scary mom will disappear. James's eyes widened, perhaps thinking I would beg to stay.
Hey, Kate.
Ignoring him, I started packing my bags. Then, Angelica, with a bright face, said,
Yay! The mean witch is leaving? That's great, Daddy. Now, you can live with Betty.
Excuse me?
Hey, Angelica.
He suddenly flustered, but I heard what she had said. Betty? What are you talking about?
It's nothing. Must be a misunderstanding.
What are you saying, Daddy? I love Betty. She buys me games and is super nice.
At that moment, I realized the whole truth. James, are you having an affair? And you even introduced her to Angelica. He, finally admitting it, said,
Yeah, that's right. She's younger and prettier than you.
Call this Betty here, right now.
Fine, but it'll just make you feel worse.
A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. A young, slim woman was standing there. So, you're James's mistress. What are you thinking even meeting my daughter? She snickered arrogantly.
Just as James said, a short-tempered old lady.
Excuse me? James then put his arm around Betty, with Angelica clinging to her leg.
Betty is a much better woman than you.
Don't bully her.
Feeling everything was ridiculous, I suppressed my anger and said, Fine. As I said, I'm leaving. But I will demand a fair settlement for your infidelity. I'll leave Angelica's custody to you. She seems to prefer you anyway. He smugly said,
Betty can have kids, so she'll dote on Angelica. And don't worry about the settlement. Her family owns a company. She's the executive vice president, so they're wealthy.
That's right, ma'am. Thanks for handing over James and Angelica. But please make sure to pay child support. We won't allow visits, though.
They said this with an air of smugness. Ignoring the smirking pair, I crouched in front of Angelica. Are you really okay with this, Angelica? You won't see me anymore.
I told you I'm fine. Just go away, Mommy.
She said this while turning away. I stood up, grabbed my bags, and left the house. Then I went back to my parents' house. They were furious about what James had done. After they had vented their anger, my mother asked me, But are you really okay with leaving Angelica? It's fine. Just watch, Mom. Then I smiled slyly. A month after I left the house, James called me several times, but I ignored all his calls. I continued to ignore him for about a week. One day, after finishing work, I found him and Betty waiting for me. What do you want? I believe we have nothing to do with each other anymore.
I want to talk. Please, give me a little time.
Please, ma'am. I'm asking you to.
Reluctantly, we moved to a nearby cafe. Suddenly, James yelled at me desperately.
Kate, please, I'm begging you, cancel the alimony claim.
Why should I?
Well, there are complications.
Like your parents finding out about your affair and disowning you, and getting kicked out of the company?
Huh? How do you know about that?
They stare at me dumbfounded, and I told them. Because I was the one who told her parents about your deeds.
What?
Unbeknownst to them, I was the accountant for her parents' company. I knew her parents were strict and hated dishonesty. So I went to them and reported everything about James and Betty. They believed Betty's lie that I was dead and were furious. They disowned her and promised to kick her out of the company.
It's all your fault we're in this mess.
She was almost in tears as she lashed out at me. I retorted, Then maybe you shouldn't have done anything shameful. And don't forget you both owe me $20,000 in alimony. Seeing my stern response, James finally broke down.
But we can't afford that. I quit my job to be a stay-at-home dad.
That's not my problem. By the way, where's Angelica today?
We left her with a babysitter.
He looked away as he said this, and then she burst out.
What's up with her? She doesn't listen, gets in trouble at daycare, and talks back when scolded. How did you raise her?
Well, maybe ask the man right there. I pointed at James with my chin, and he looked uncomfortable.
This isn't the family life I envisioned. Please, just spare us the alimony.
Yeah, Kate. You can afford it, right? Please, I'm begging you.
That's when I finally snapped. Everything is your own doing, you jerks. I'll make sure to collect that alimony, even if it means going to court. Be prepared. Well, I wish you 3 happiness. I'm disappearing from your lives forever. Goodbye. With that, I left the cafe, leaving them in despair. Afterward, James and Betty got into a huge mess over the alimony and eventually broke up. James was disowned by his family and now works day and night to repay the debt he incurred for the alimony. Betty tried to return to her parents, but they refused to take her back. Now she's working in the nightlife industry, a far cry from her previous life as a lady. As for Angelica, James eventually came to me, admitting he couldn't raise her alone. In the end, I took her back. When she saw me again after a long time, she cried.
Mommy, I'm sorry. I missed your cooking.
I hugged her and took her back to my parents' house. At first, it was hard to break her spoiled habits, but my mother and I patiently worked with her, explaining why certain behaviors were wrong. I cut back on work to spend more time with my daughter. Gradually, she became more polite and started living a more disciplined life. Now, she's a complete mommy's girl and clings to me. I can't help but adore her. After all, she's my daughter. Moving forward, I plan to raise her without spoiling her too much, but still shower her with love and care.
My brother laughed when I told him my husband was having an affair. I understood why when my husband was on his knees in front of me.
It can't be helped if you've found out. Yeah, I've been cheating on you. Let's just get a divorce then.
My husband didn't seem guilty at all. He's such a jerk. I have no idea why I married this man. When I told my brother what happened, he just laughed with a big smile on his face.
Well, good for you.
What's so good about it? I was appalled at my brother's lack of delicacy, but I never thought something like that would happen.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
As I saw my husband on his knees apologizing, I recalled my brother's words. My name is Catherine, and I'm a 34-year-old housewife. My husband Simon and I have been married for 2 years. We met through work. We met when we were clients of each other's company we worked for. He is 2 years older than me and seemed very dependable. In fact, he was the one who was leading at work, and things went well thanks to him. So I thought he was cool because he was manly and good at his job. Then one day he asked me out to dinner. It was a celebration for a job well done. That brought us closer, and we started going on regular dates. After a few dates, he confessed his feelings for me, and we started dating. We continued to date steadily, and after about a year of dating, he proposed to me.
I need you, Catherine. So, will you marry me?
Yes, of course. And so we were to be married. Soon after that, we went to greet each other's parents. He was a sincere man, so my parents liked him very much. I went to greet his parents next, and they were very friendly and kind people, and they liked me too. After that, we had a dinner, so our parents could meet each other. And so, he and I got married. Many friends and people from work attended our ceremony, and I think it turned out to be a very nice one. Then, we went on our honeymoon and started living together after returning home. I enjoyed my newlywed life very much. My husband wanted me to be a housewife, so I listened and concentrated on housework. I cooked elaborate meals for my husband, who worked very hard every day. My husband eats my food every day, showing great satisfaction.
The dinner is delicious, but the lunch you made for me was also undeniably great. So many of the women at work complimented me on my lunch. They said that they can see that I'm loved.
I'll make you an elaborate lunch every day.
Yes, please. I'm looking forward to it.
I was very happy to hear my husband say that. It's especially nice to get compliments from people of the same gender. After that, I became very particular about the lunch I made for him. Every day, I made lunch boxes that were nutritionally balanced, colorful, and satisfying. I felt a sense of accomplishment from making so many nice lunches, and I began to take pictures to keep record. I look at the growing folder of photos and congratulate myself on a job well done. In this way, I supported my husband as a housewife while doing my best at housework. I hope that my lunches will give my husband strength and that he will be able to give his all in his work. That's how I spent my days. My husband works hard at his job every day. Or so I believed. 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye after living such a life. My relationship with my husband is as good as before. However, he seems to be busy at work these days, frequently working overtime, and he sometimes has to work on his days off. The only thing I can do to cheer him up is to cook him delicious food. Even if he was working on his days off, I would make him lunch. It wasn't hard at all if I thought it was for my husband. In fact, I felt like I was cheering him on, which made me happy. Then one day, my friend Brooke invited me out to dinner. My husband was working on his day off that day, and he said he was going out for drinks with his high school classmates for dinner. So I didn't have to worry about preparing dinner. My friend had been away from the country for a while on an overseas business trip, so I hadn't been able to see her very often. So I accepted her invitation just like that. My friend hadn't returned to the country for a while, so we went to eat some barbecue. I felt bad for my husband if we went to an expensive restaurant, so we went to a common chain barbecue restaurant. But my friend said it was very delicious and we had a delightful time. After all, it's nice to meet up with old friends like this. Since I got married, I've been working hard as a full-time housewife, so I didn't have so many chances to spend time with people other than my husband. So just talking with my friend was very inspiring. Besides, my friend works for a foreign company and is what you might call a career woman. I think it's cool to see her achieving results while working so freely. Brooke, you're really amazing. I feel like you're so far away from me now.
What are you talking about? I think it's great that you work so hard at cooking and to keep the house in order. You always make lunch for your husband, don't you?
Yes, every day without fail.
That's really something. By the way, what kind of lunch do you make? I've been thinking about cooking for myself too. Lately, I've been learning from posts online.
Oh, really? I was convinced that her diligence is the reason why my friend is so successful.
Well, I make things like these.
I opened the folder of photo lunches in my phone and showed her.
What? You made all of these? That's amazing. They're just like the ones on social media, and they look so delicious. Of course this would make your husband happy.
I was happy to hear my friend say that. My hard work seems to be getting through. Of course, I was happy that my husband's coworkers were praising my efforts, but having someone I actually know praise me directly makes me feel even more confident. But then, Brooke stopped to look back at one of the photos.
Wait, I think I saw the same one on social media the other day.
What? No way. I've never made something by looking at someone else's recipe or photo. I thought it would be unoriginal. I think about my husband and rely on myself to make his lunch more colorful and to make a variety of foods for him. So I was very surprised at my friend's remark.
Look at this.
My friend showed me a post on her phone.
What? This is the very lunch I made. Yeah, the lunchbox is the same as well.
My friend had been searching for posts with hashtags like handmade lunch and cooking for myself on social media and adding them to her favorites, thinking of using them as a reference when she makes her own lunch in the future. She said she had no connection with the account that posted the lunch in the picture. The owner of the post was bragging that she had made the lunch. The photos were apparently taken outdoors, at a table in a park or something, and not at home. In addition, other photos also showed the same lunch as the ones I had made in the past. What does this all mean? Did it just happen that the lunchbox I use and the recipe and appearance of the lunch are exactly the same? No, such a miracle would never happen. I had a very bad thought. That is, my husband is connected to this woman, and she is taking pictures of the lunches I make for him. In that case, there is a very high possibility that my husband and this woman are having an affair. Since then, I have been keeping an eye out for the posts on this account. She had uploaded a picture of her face before, and she looks quite young, probably in her early 20s. Maybe she is a new employee at my husband's company. A week after I found this post, the account owner posted a new photo. I was out of words, because it was definitely the lunch I made for my husband that morning. The photo was captioned, "I cooked myself lunch even on my day off." This is definitely someone who is related to my husband, and it's almost certain that it's someone from the company he works with. I couldn't stop but feel lost at my feelings, so I immediately decided to go to the company where my husband worked. At a cafe right in front of his office, I carefully observed the entrance. Then I saw my husband coming out. At first, I was relieved to see him come out alone, but a few seconds later, a woman followed him out, and she tangled herself in my husband's arms. Not only was the woman entwined with my husband, but she was the owner of that account. I don't know if I was hoping for something different, but I felt a mixed up feeling of shock, and I knew it. My emotions were so jumbled up that I almost collapsed on the spot. But I did my best to keep my emotions in check. I called my friend and told her that I found out that my husband was having an affair. My friend immediately came over and comforted me. Then I got a call from my husband that he was going out for a drink tonight and didn't need dinner. He must be with that woman. My emotions were even more messed up. I don't know what I would have done without my friend. I went into the bedroom as soon as I got home. I wanted to fall asleep before my husband got home. I took some sleeping pills and managed to fall asleep. The next morning, I woke up to find my husband lying beside me. Seeing him sleeping so comfortably, my emotions were all messed up again. I almost cried while making breakfast. Then my husband woke up at an inopportune moment.
Good morning.
I hurriedly wiped away my tears and replied without looking at him, "Good morning. What time did you come home last night? I didn't notice at all."
Oh, it was around 2 o'clock.
I see.
You were sleeping like a baby.
Oh.
What are you making?
A sandwich.
Oh, that's good. I'm hungover, so I wanted something light for my stomach. I'll make you some coffee.
My husband being kind and considerate like that was making it hard for me. Who were you drinking with last night?
Who? Just a coworker from work.
Was it with a woman?
No, of course not. It was just a bunch of guys drinking together. But I get drunk more when it's like that.
That's what my husband says, laughing it off. Why are you lying?
What? Lying? I'm not lying. What's wrong, Catherine? You don't seem like yourself today.
Of course. How can I stay calm after seeing a scene like this? I said that and showed my husband a picture I took on my phone. It was a picture of my husband and that woman coming out of the office with their arms around each other. You were late last night drinking with her, weren't you? That means that you were having an affair with this person, right? I questioned my husband with tears streaming down my face. He looked at me wide-eyed, but then he sighed and smiled.
It can't be helped if you found out. Yeah, I've been cheating on you.
Why are you so brazen about it?
Because I don't have to hide it anymore. Let's just get a divorce. She's young and pretty, and I fell in love with her at first sight. I'll leave you and remarry her.
My husband didn't seem guilty at all. He's such a jerk. I have no idea why I married this man. No, why couldn't I see the true nature of this man? I was so frustrated. I ran out from the house that instant. But even though I left, I had nowhere to go, so I went back to my parents' house. My parents were not home, but my brother was. Hey, why are you here?
I'm house-sitting for them.
House-sitting? I hadn't seen my brother for a long time. My brother was a business owner and a man who traveled around overseas. He was always very busy. He was unable to attend our family meeting before our marriage, and he was only able to attend the first part of our wedding because he had to fly overseas. He was such a busy man that it had been a long time since I had seen him properly. Where are Mom and Dad?
Actually, I gave them a trip to Hawaii to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary, so I'm staying here with my wife while they're away. My wife's at the hair salon right now. Anyway, what brings you to your parents' house all of a sudden?
My brother asked, and I remembered that I came here after a fight with my husband. Actually, when I told my brother what happened, he just laughed with a big smile on his face.
Well, good for you.
I didn't understand why my brother was laughing and acting all cheerful about it. What's so good about it?
Okay, I'm sorry. But you were right to leave a guy like that. I'll take care of the rest.
What? He said that out of the blue. I was appalled at my brother's lack of delicacy, but I never thought something like that would happen. I stayed at my parents' house that day, and I enjoyed the delicious home-cooked food my sister-in-law had prepared. About 3 days later, my husband suddenly came to my parents' house. I was at home with my brother and sister-in-law and was surprised to see my husband on the intercom. What on earth do you want? I don't want to talk to you, I said to my husband as I opened the door. Then he suddenly got down on his knees.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
What? What is this?
If you don't forgive me, I'm going to be in big trouble.
Saying that, my husband rubbed his forehead on the floor. Seeing my husband on his knees apologizing, I recalled my brother's words. Did something happen?
What do you think happened, huh? I'm about to get fired.
What? Why?
Don't play dumb. Why didn't you tell me your brother is the president of Raven Solutions?
What? Raven Solutions? My brother's company is not that big. That's why I was so surprised to hear him say that. And then my brother's wife added that he had taken over the company last year at the request of the previous president. I hadn't seen my brother and his wife for a long time, so I had no idea about his recent situation. His company is an important client of the company where my husband works. According to the story, my brother told the president of my husband's company about the whole situation. Moreover, my husband's affair partner was apparently the daughter of the president of the company. My husband was serious about their relationship, but for her it was just a fling. But it didn't matter what it was. The fact that my husband had an affair with the daughter of the president of the company he works for, and betrayed the sister of the president of an important client company was enough to bring him down socially. It was more than enough to get him fired. And although he would never be forgiven, my brother told my husband that if he apologized to me, he could ask his president to withdraw his dismissal. That was why he came to apologize to me. I despised him for apologizing so desperately just to save his own skin. I will never forgive you. Go to hell. With these words, I kicked him out of the house.
Catherine, please, save me. We loved each other so many times, didn't we?
My husband says all kinds of convenient things, one after the other. If you keep on staying there, I'll call the police. When I said that, he ran away in a hurry, as if he realized it was a bad idea. After that, I divorced my husband through an attorney and filed for alimony against him and the affair partner. My husband could not escape from his layoff, and is now working as a part-timer while trying desperately to pay back the alimony. Of course, there was no way he could be seen attractive as a part-timer with debts, and the affair was just for fun, so he was dumped by the woman immediately. Meanwhile, I decided to go back to my parents' house and start job hunting. I often serve home-cooked meals to my parents, and they tell me that they are very delicious. The cooking skills I've acquired during my marriage will come in handy in the future, so I want to sustain my skills. I've never thought of doing it before, but I'm now thinking of posting pictures of my daily lunches and their recipes on social media. At any rate, now that I've gotten rid of the lousy man in my life, I'm going to do more and more of the things I like to do for myself. He's a really lousy husband for sneaking around happily and having an affair and changing his attitude like that right after he gets caught. You can never get away with doing something wrong. I was surprised that Catherine found out about the affair from an unexpected place, and I'm glad that she was able to bring her husband to justice. I hope she will continue to get along with her brother, parents, and friends, and find new happiness in the future. Thank you for watching to the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you liked our story. See you in the next video.
My husband has been ignoring me since Christmas. When the new year approached and he still didn't respond, I handed him divorce papers.
My husband had been unreasonably ignoring me since Christmas. In an attempt to repair our relationship, I made a special New Year's dish and said to him on New Year's morning, "Happy New Year." Silence. I had hoped for a response at least during the New Year, but that hope was quickly betrayed. Despite feeling hurt inside, I decided to talk to my husband. I worked hard to prepare a special dish. Will you try it? Then, the next moment, my husband silently dumped the stack of boxes on the table into the trash. "What are you doing?" My husband continued to stare at me in silence, with a smirk on his face. Seeing that expression, I reached my limit. I can't be with this man as a wife any longer. I then silently confronted him with the divorce papers. 1 month later, my husband's life would be hell. My name is Zoe Sanders, and I'm 29 years old. I've been married for 2 years and am a stay-at-home mom. My husband's name is Mark. We met through a friend's introduction. Mark, who works for a major advertising agency, approached me from the beginning. Having had few romantic relationships, I immediately fell in love and started dating. After 2 years of dating, Mark proposed to me, and I happily accepted.
I really like kids. I want them soon.
Mark, you're in a hurry. But I like children too. I hope we'll be blessed. After that conversation, Mark's expression turned serious. I need to go and tell my mom about our marriage.
I hope she'll be happy.
My mother will be overjoyed. I'm her only daughter getting married. Actually, I was raised in a single-parent household. When I was 3 years old, my parents separated, and my mother took me with her. I have vague memories of my father, and we haven't met since then. I think he was a kind person, but I don't know the details of their separation. I haven't inquired about the circumstances that led to their separation. But since my mother seemed unwilling to talk about it, I have never probed further. Since then, I was raised by my mother, growing up as the only daughter. Our life was modest, but as a parent and child, we supported each other and our bond was strong. When I reported my marriage to my mother, she jumped for joy.
Zoe, be happy. Mark, please, take care of my daughter.
My mother said this with tears in her eyes, and Mark responded with a smile.
Of course, Mom.
I felt the greatest happiness at the sight of it. I was convinced that I would spend my life with Mark.
That's right, Zoe. Did you inform Hannah about the marriage?
Oh yes, Hannah was delighted too. Of course, I'll invite her to the wedding. Hannah is the name of my childhood friend. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same nursery school, and stayed together until high school. Hannah got along well with my mother. Now she lives a little away. When I reported my marriage to her, she also told me that she was dating someone with the intention of marriage. After that, Mark and I registered our marriage and had a wedding as planned. Hannah attended the ceremony, and I was at peak happiness. The only thing that was a mystery was the gorgeous floral arrangement that arrived at the ceremony from an unknown sender. I quickly forgot about it. Later, I became a housewife at Mark's request, and our married life began. However, within a year, our relationship became awkward. The cause was our inability to have children. It seems it didn't work this month either. As I reported this with my shoulders drooped, Mark told me in an annoyed tone.
Again? When will you get pregnant?
There's no need to say it like that.
I've been saying I like kids and want them for a long time. Maybe it's because you're not making enough of an effort that we can't have a child.
I'm doing my best.
You're not fulfilling your duties as a wife, even though I'm the one providing for you.
With teary eyes, I looked down, and Mark left, muttering something. Mark not only blamed me for not being able to have children, but also started complaining about my housework, and I gradually became exhausted. 1 year into marriage, the state of our relationship was uncertain. However, I didn't want to make the only person who rejoiced in my marriage, my mother, sad. That was my determination. At that time, I received a message from my mother asking me to come and see her. Returning to my parents' house, I was surprised. Mom, why are you losing so much weight? And what's the story? To my inquiries, my mother quietly replied,
Actually, I've been diagnosed with cancer. I'll undergo treatment, but we don't know what will happen.
Mom, I'll be by your side as much as possible. I'll support you.
Thank you, Zoe, but try not to inconvenience Mark.
In consideration of my mother, who was even concerned about Mark at such a time, I couldn't bring up the unjust complaints I received from him. That day when I returned home, I told Mark about my mother. So, my mother will be undergoing treatment. I'll be going to the hospital for a while to take care of her. Mark unexpectedly responded with this.
Huh? Then who will take care of things at home during that time?
I'll try to manage the household as much as possible. You might need to help a bit, though. Upon hearing this, Mark let out a disdainful laugh.
You want me to help with household chores? Don't be ridiculous. Listen, household chores will still be your responsibility, just like before.
But...
Also, I won't contribute a penny to your mother's medical expenses. Handle it on your own.
I was left speechless. Even in such a situation with our family, I expected a little cooperation. This hope was completely shattered.
If you can't manage the house properly while taking care of your mother, I won't let you off easy. I won't be kind enough to support a useless wife who can't get pregnant or handle housework.
Mark glared at me. Remembering my mother's situation and her request not to trouble him, I could only nod. After that, the days were hectic. I managed my time, making brief visits to my mother's hospital and taking care of household chores. My mother seemed to be undergoing quite harsh chemotherapy. It was difficult for me to witness her in such a condition, since I started visiting my mother's hospital about a month ago. The season had turned to December. It was during this time that my childhood friend Hannah made a certain request of me. I agreed to it, thinking it was for the sake of my friend. And so the events of Christmas Eve unfolded. When I returned from visiting my mother's hospital, Mark was waiting for me.
Hey, you've really become miserable, you know?
Huh? With a condescending look, he suddenly said that, leaving me surprised. What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. You truly are the worst wife ever. I don't want to hear anything from you anymore.
What? After that, no matter how many times I tried to talk to Mark, he wouldn't respond. Since then, Mark started ignoring my existence. No matter how much I spoke to him, he wouldn't answer. Even a simple greeting like goodbye or welcome back was met with averted eyes and a sigh. Living like this, my mental state was gradually deteriorating. Being criticized was painful, but being ignored made me feel like my worth had disappeared. In the days leading up to the New Year, while my mother slept in her hospital room, I received a call from Hannah.
Yes, it was as I thought. Zoe, thank you.
It's fine, but are you okay?
I'm fine. Zoe, why do you sound so down? Is something wrong?
Unable to hold back, I poured out the days of being dismissed and ignored by Mark to Hannah. She listened and sympathized, and that alone lightened my heart. After hanging up the phone, I looked at my mother, and her eyes were open.
Huh? Oh, Mom, were you listening?
Yes. Come here, Zoe. It must have been tough.
I had tried to keep it from my worrying mother, but everything was exposed. In that shock, my mother quietly told me something important.
Zoe, I'm going to tell you something now, and you need to listen very carefully.
Then my mother revealed something astonishing. After that, Mark's silent treatment continued. I, on the other hand, had been preparing special dishes since New Year's Eve. Mark, who had been ignoring me since Christmas, might speak to me again now that it's a new year. I hoped that these special dishes would be the catalyst. In our silent home, I quietly prepared the food. Mark silently drank beer and watched TV. Eventually, Mark went to bed before the date changed that day. After finishing the dishes, I went to bed, feeling downcast. The next morning, as I stood in the kitchen, Mark also woke up. Happy New Year. I hoped that I might get a response at least for New Year's, but that expectation was quickly betrayed. Hurt inside, I talked to my husband. I worked hard to prepare a special dish. Will you try it? Then the next moment, my husband silently dumped the stack of boxes on the table into the trash.
What are you doing?
Mark, grinning silently, stared at me while I panicked. Seeing that expression, I made up my mind. He attacked me unilaterally for not being able to have children and ignored me for more than a week. And now, this is what he does to me? I can't be married to this man any longer. I took out the divorce papers, always kept as a backup from my bag. I silently thrust them towards Mark.
What's the deal with having this kind of thing already?
It was the first time I heard my husband's voice in a while.
Fine, let's get a divorce. There's no point in being with a failure like you anymore. A jobless divorced woman whose mother is on the verge of kicking the bucket will be a sight to behold.
Mark signs the divorce papers while glaring at me. Having witnessed that, I took the divorce papers from him, packed my things, and left the house. 1 month later, I was at my mother's hospital when Mark called. I chose to ignore it and left my phone aside. However, the calls continued every few minutes. He was persistent, like a relentless ogre. I continued to ignore him. As I exited the hospital, Mark was waiting for me, He tried talking to me about something he wanted to know, but I continued to ignore him. We eventually arrived at the high-rise apartment where I lived. He looked around, dumbfounded.
Hey, are you living here now? Why is a jobless person like you living in a luxury apartment like this?
Let's go upstairs. I don't want a scene in the entrance. I led him to the living room of my home.
Hey, explain yourself first. You, with no significant money, how can you afford to live in a place like this?
Regarding this house? My father helped me out. He thought I might have nowhere to go after the divorce, so he offered support.
What? Your father? Aren't you from a single-parent household?
I explained the situation. I told him about my mother's request to contact my father, who was born into a wealthy family. In fact, my father was born to a very wealthy family and fell in love with my mother, who was a maid, and I was born. However, my father's parents didn't approve of their mismatched marriage. They continued to harass my mother, who eventually fell ill. To protect me from further harassment, he promised my mother never to be involved again and left. While pretending to have no contact with my mother, my father secretly supported us whenever we needed financial help. He even sent a large flower arrangement for my wedding. Upon receiving my call, my father learned about my and my mother's current situation. When we reunited, he embraced me, expressing that he had always wanted to see me. He promised to be on our side now that both his opposing parents were no longer around. Upon learning about the troubles I faced with Mark and my desire for a divorce, my father said he would arrange a place for me after the divorce. It turned out that he still cared for my mother, agreeing to help take care of her as well. So that's how I'm living in this house now. I found a job through my father's connections, and I received a large living gift, so I'm not hurting for money. Too bad you won't get to see my miserable state. As I casually shared this, Mark bit his lip, looking frustrated.
Huh! Even with all that money, you're still miserable. After all, your body can't have children.
What?
I saw it on Christmas Day, the results of the infertility clinic's examination. You kept it a secret from me. What a fraud. That's why I stopped talking to you.
Ah, so that's it. I finally understood. At the same time, laughter welled up within me. Did you even bother to check the name on those test results?
Huh? It was delivered to our place, so it must be yours.
Those were my childhood friend's test results. That was the favor Hannah asked me. She was about to get married and had the infertility test done, but she couldn't muster the courage to check the results herself. That was her request to me. Unfortunately, she was diagnosed as unable to conceive. What Mark saw was the test result I received on behalf of Hannah. You misunderstood, and that's why you kept ignoring me. I had the test myself, and there was no problem. If anything, maybe the infertility issue lies with you. Give it a try. Get tested.
What? There's no way.
In response to Mark's agitation, I asked the question. So you said there's something you want to ask me, right? What's the main issue?
Oh, right. Do you know the major housing company called A House? They're a client of my company, and suddenly they want to terminate our contract.
Oh, really? What's the reason?
They claim it's my fault. So, I asked them for the reason, and they said to check with my ex-wife. What the hell is going on?
Upon hearing this, I chuckled. Mark looked bewildered.
What the hell is happening?
Do you know the name of the president of A House?
Huh? I think it's Richie Anderson.
That's him, right? I pointed to the entrance of the room. Standing there was my father.
Huh? Why is the president Mr. Anderson here?
Mark stood up in amazement. Dad cleared his throat and replied.
I heard my daughter invited her lousy ex-husband to the house. What's wrong with me, the father, coming to see him? Daughter? Zoe's father is President Anderson?
Knowing everything, Mark was dismayed, and my father revealed the truth.
Now that I know what you did to Zoe, I have no intention of doing business with your company. Now get out if you understand.
Mark finally lost his composure, and turned to me.
Zoe, if the contract with A House is terminated, I won't be able to stay at the company. Please, ask your father to reconsider. Let's start over. Let's build a happy family this time, even if we can't have children.
I pushed away the desperate Mark and shouted like this. You can't just say whatever you want. Who's going to forget the things you did to me? I won't entertain the idea of starting over, not in a million years. I'll never forgive you, you jerk.
That's...
Mark was covered in tears and mucus. My father, grabbing him by the collar, kicked him out of the house. Later on, Mark faced dismissal from the company as a form of accountability for the contract termination initiated by A House. Further tests showed that he was indeed infertile.
Even without children, we could have been happy. Let's remarry.
A mysterious and inexplicable phone call came through, but when my father hired a lawyer to issue a warning, the contact abruptly ceased. It seems Mark is currently residing in an old studio apartment while intensely job hunting. Despite his prideful nature, I hope he confronts the challenges of this lifestyle and lives reflecting on his past actions. On the other hand, as for me, I'm working hard while living in the high-rise apartment provided by my father. Following successful treatment, my mother is now living with my father. Hannah, my childhood friend, seems to have found happiness as well, as her fiancé expressed a willingness to marry her despite her revelation about infertility. From now on, I hope to take care of my family and friends, and find my own happiness.
My husband called me a plague. He blamed me for his salary reduction and inability to get promoted. I left home with my daughter and...
A man who blames others for all his misfortunes. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about my husband. I lost a game because of you. I lost my job because of you. I got wet in rain because you wouldn't let me carry an umbrella. I'm unhappy because you're a plague. Here's my story of how I left home with my daughter, prepared for him to blame me for his unhappiness. My name is Shelley, and I'm 44 years old. My husband was my high school classmate, and we married when I was 23. I work part-time, 4 times a week at a nearby diner. We have one daughter, Emma, who will turn 20 this year, and she is a strong, bright girl. She graduated from high school and went to culinary school. She now works in a hotel restaurant. My husband is the assistant manager of a hamburger chain, so our family is in the food service industry. When I got home that day, my husband complained to me.
Why didn't you give me an umbrella this morning?
What?
You knew it might rain later in the evening, didn't you? You should have told me because you always spend your free time watching TV. Thanks to you, I got wet.
I don't know why he assumes that I watch TV in my free time. Anybody can get the weather forecast on their phone nowadays. You're not in elementary school. I can't take care of you like that. If you don't want to get wet, why didn't you buy an umbrella at the supermarket?
How can I buy such a thing out of my meager allowance? If you'd let me carry an umbrella, I wouldn't have to spend it. What a waste that would be.
Well, that's probably true. But you should have noticed and taken care of it yourself. And every single thing you say, it's so cheap. You say it's a small allowance, but it's supposed to be the average allowance for a man in his 40s. Or are all men in the world like this? Do all the men in the world complain to their wives like this every day? As we're all in the food service industry, it's not always easy to get time off together. It's rare that we're off on weekends and holidays, or at least there are very few days when my husband and I have the same days off. But one day when I had my day off for my part-time job, my daughter was also free. So for the first time in a long time, my daughter and I decided to go shopping together. We shopped till we were satisfied, but we only ended up buying daily necessities and food. Then we had lunch at the food court.
Dad, you were classmates in high school, right?
My daughter says while carrying the chocolate sundae we were having for dessert to her mouth. That's right.
What was it that made you decide?
I don't know. Well, I realized that I have never told my daughter the story of how we got married. Now he has gained weight and there's no trace of it in high school. My husband was the ace of the baseball team, and I was the manager of the team.
Wow, what youth!
After graduating from high school, we each got a job. When we turned 20, we met again at a reunion and started dating. We dated for about 2 years and got married.
So cliche.
My daughter laughs as she says that. Not everybody's life is as dramatic as the movies. What about you, James, right? How's the relationship going? My daughter's dating a guy 3 years older than her at the restaurant where she works. She hasn't introduced him to me, but from what I've heard, he seems like a nice young man.
It's going pretty well. It's hard for both of us to get time off on the same day, but we've been talking lately about how we want to have a small restaurant together in the future.
What? Are you guys talking about marriage?
Nah, it's still a long way to go. We need to work hard now and save up for the future.
They're both working hard toward the same goal. Even if you break up, you'll still have some money saved up, I said jokingly.
Oh my God, Mom, don't say that.
She laughed. It's times like this that I'm glad I had a girl. If my child had been a boy, I wouldn't have such a close relationship.
But you know what? Dad always blames others for everything, doesn't he? When I was a kid, I remember he'd always say things like, I missed the train because you needed to go to the bathroom on the way out, and I got a cold because I had to go pick you up. I've recently realized that you get that too. Like the other day when he said that you didn't let him take his umbrella.
You just noticed that now? He's always been like that. Every bad thing that happens is somebody else's fault but his own. He's the type that says it's not my fault. Every opportunity he has.
Oh, really? He's a jerk, isn't he?
Is my husband a jerk? I never thought about it until my daughter told me. Not so much as to blame anyone. I just thought of it as a whine or a complaint. Around when you were born, your father worked in a restaurant. It was a pretty high-class place. One day, one of his regular customers made a reservation to treat an important client.
Oh no, I have a bad feeling about this.
The client was allergic to nuts, and your father was in charge of dessert. The customer had warned him to be careful of his allergy, but at that time, common allergens were only crustaceans like shrimp or almonds.
Nowadays, it's known that people can be allergic to almost everything.
But your father thought he was talking about his allergy to almonds, so he served it with cashews instead of almonds.
Well, that's...
The customer was furious because he had warned him beforehand, and his boss also said that he'd warned him beforehand and your father was at fault. Well, it's his fault for not making sure, but he ended up getting fired because of it.
I can sympathize with him, but...
He still sometimes recalls that time, saying it was because of that boss, even though it was 20 years ago. We came home with a huge baggage, continuing our mother-daughter talk while putting away the things we'd bought.
Maybe that's why I fell in love with James. He's always so positive. Sometimes I think he's a little crazy, but I like his positive attitude and his perseverance.
Yeah? But in 20 years, you'll probably think he's really crazy.
Oh my God, Mom, that's so funny. It's so funny because it's so possible.
I love it when she's upbeat like this.
I'd rather have a happy idiot than a depressed idiot.
Are you talking about your dad?
Maybe.
After 20 years of being a married couple, you're bound to have some frustrations, but you manage to live with each other. I thought that's what married couples did. We'd bought some Chinese food requested by daughter at the food court. My daughter said it's okay to cut corners once in a while.
What's with the takeout Chinese food? You're cutting corners, aren't you?
My husband complained, as expected.
I told Mom I wanted to eat it.
My daughter covered for me, so my husband said nothing more. He has a weakness for his daughter.
Apparently a guy the same age as me became the manager of the store in the next town over. The previous manager was transferred to the head office. It's probably because it's in a better location and they have more sales than us. Our store is not so good because the manager is useless.
If the manager is useless, why don't you work harder to make up for it?
Maybe it's because of the conversation we had during the day. My daughter is very critical of her father today.
It's not that simple. You're too young to understand. I know the guy that got promoted, and when I worked with him, he was really useless. He was just a normal waiter for a long time, but he got married and got promoted maybe because his wife brought something good to him. Unlike us, they have 3 kids.
I'm sorry I'm the only kid here. Isn't that because that person was willing to work hard for the family? If you say that about him, it's like it's Mom's fault that you can't get promoted.
I'm not saying that.
Yes, he is. It's always someone else's fault that things aren't going well for him. If someone else is doing well, it's not their own effort, but he just sees it as luck. Hey, stop arguing over dinner. When I warned them, they ate their meals in silence. After he finished eating, he quickly went to the bathroom.
Aren't you angry at what he's been saying?
My daughter said while drinking tea after dinner. I'm not angry at him for such a little thing. No, actually, I am angry. But I've given up on saying it.
Do you respect him?
What? Respect? I don't think so.
After what he said to you, you're going to live the rest of your life with someone you don't respect?
Well, when you put it that way, and considering the average life expectancy, I'm just about at the halfway point. My daughter's straightforward question stuck in my mind in a way I didn't expect. In a few years, she'll be out of this house, and when she does, I'll be alone with him. For the first time, the words middle-aged divorce popped into my head. A few days later, my husband said,
Maybe I should change jobs. The manager and the part-timers are useless. I really don't have any luck.
I can't imagine that changing jobs at the age of 44 is going to be a good thing. You always blame someone else. It's not going to work out if you change jobs like that.
But it's true.
You blame everyone around you for everything. You never change.
What the hell? What do you know?
You know Konosuke Matsushita, the founder of Panasonic in Japan? When he held job interviews, he'll ask the applicants if they were lucky. And he didn't recruit them if they answered that they were unlucky, no matter how good they were.
What the heck is that?
That's why I think you will be rejected in the interview, even if you try to change your job. My husband fell silent after hearing about an anecdote about the god of management I happened to see on the internet recently. A few days after that happened, my husband, who rarely comes home after drinking, came home very drunk.
Today was the welcome party for the new manager.
What? The store in the next town over?
No, the manager of our store suddenly resigned and decided to go back to his hometown.
If that's the case, he should have told me beforehand. I wouldn't have made dinner then.
I'm the assistant manager, so I'm supposed to be the next in line for manager, right? But the guy who was assistant manager at the other store became our manager. It's not right, is it?
If I told him my honest opinion at a time like this, a fight would definitely break out, so I kept my mouth shut. My daughter seemed to want to say something, but didn't.
Then they told me that starting next month, my salary would be reduced.
What? Why?
Penalty for food poisoning. $200 less for 6 months. The previous manager was so stressed out over it that he quit.
It's a big deal for a restaurant to cause food poisoning. We take every precaution to make sure that doesn't happen.
It's the part-timer's fault. Why would you come to work and not report that one of your family members caught the virus? I bet he didn't wash his hands properly.
The norovirus is highly contagious and pretty nasty. Isn't it the job of the higher-ups to manage the part-timers properly so that it doesn't happen? I'm also in the business of serving food to customers, so I got a little angry.
Shut up. What's the matter with you? It's your fault I didn't get promoted and my salary is reduced.
Huh? What? You may be drunk, but there is a limit to how far you can go with blaming others.
Nothing good has happened since I married you. You plague.
You went so far, now treating me like a plague. Oh, God. I can only sigh now. At that moment, my daughter said,
Should we leave, Mom?
Maybe he'll be happier if the plague leaves.
What are you saying? Are you idiots? If you want to leave, why don't you just leave then?
He's drunk, so he obviously feels confident. Well, I'll take your word for it and leave. I'm sick and tired of you making everything someone else's fault. But it's your fault we're leaving. With that being said, my daughter and I packed the bare minimum of our belongings and left the house.
What do you want to do? Go to your parents' house?
It's too much trouble to explain everything. Let's stay in a hotel somewhere.
I guess so. There's a nice hotel in front of the station. Let's stay there.
It was kind of refreshing. I was treated like a plague, but I felt more like I was freed from the plague. The next morning, I got several calls on my phone in the early hours. That's when my husband usually gets up and gets ready. I don't know how much he remembers about last night. He probably woke up and is in a panic after realizing that his daughter and I were gone. I ignored the calls, and soon after, my daughter's phone rang. You don't have to answer it, just ignore it. I have the day off today, but my daughter has to go to work at 10. We had an elegant breakfast at a hotel restaurant, just the two of us. I'm going home once during the day to get a few more things. Let's stay here at least one more night and figure out what we're going to do.
Okay, I forgot my phone charger, so please pick that up for me too.
She said that and left for work. I wondered what I would do if my husband took the day off work and stayed home, but it never happened. Our family lives in a 3-bedroom apartment. We talked about buying a house a long time ago, but in the end we decided that it might be better to save up for retirement. So we ended up staying in the apartment. But I'm really glad I'm not tied down to a house. I guess I'm lucky too.
After what he said to you, you're going to live the rest of your life with someone you don't respect?
I was thinking about what my daughter said to me. He's not unfaithful. He's not a violent man. He's not a bad husband, but he's not a good husband either. Maybe he's a normal husband, but I thought of living with him for the next half of my life. And I didn't want to live with him. I didn't want to live with a man who called me a plague. No, thank you. That night, to my surprise, my daughter came back to the hotel room with her boyfriend.
Mom, I'm sorry to drop in on you like this. James and I have been talking, and if you really want to move out of that house, would you like to rent a room with us?
My daughter surprised me when she said that. Her boyfriend, James, is a big, bright young man.
It's funny that I'm saying this because we've just met. We've been talking about moving in together for a while now. But when I think about saving money, I thought it would be better for both of us to stay at home.
That's right. And we both work full time. So it would be great if you could take care of the house.
That would be great for me, but I'm not intruding, am I?
Not at all.
They both said that in unison. The next day I waited for my husband to come home. I don't want to be with somebody who calls me a plague, so please let me leave you. I put the divorce papers on the table and said to my husband,
What? Are you kidding me? Are you really going to leave?
Yeah, you'll be happy when the plague is gone, won't you? You're not going to say that now your wife is gone and start blaming things on it again, right? What's your excuse going to be now?
Oh, that's... Calling you a plague was just... It was more of a figure of speech, because I was drunk.
Don't blame the alcohol. I'm sick of it. I'll take half of your savings, since it's our joint property.
How could you?
My husband looked at the statement while saying that.
What? Is this half?
He's obviously surprised. My husband's salary is not a lot, but I managed to make ends meet. I had saved up nearly $140,000 by combining my salary of working part-time. Half of that is about $70,000. If you're going to take it, you have to sign the divorce agreement. I told him to sign it, and he did. I had a little hope at this point of him stopping and apologizing to me.
You saved so much money by making ends meet with my small salary. You're a good wife, and I'm sorry. I'm going to change and do my best from now on, so please forgive me.
If he really did say that, I might have reconsidered. But it's just a dream that can't come true. In reality, my husband was blinded by the $70,000 he had in front of him. He signed the divorce agreement. It was as easy as playing catch. And so I moved in with my daughter and her boyfriend, James, in a 3-bedroom apartment. I continued to work part-time as before while being in charge of the meals and the laundry. The cleaning is done by the 2 youngsters on their days off. It's hard to get the same days off, but when they come home, they seem to be happy to be getting time together with each other. Both my daughter and her boyfriend are cheerful, and we have a lot of laughs every day.
I'm happy to be able to eat delicious food both in the morning and at night thanks to you, Shelley.
I'm happy to hear him say that. After that, I heard that my ex-husband really changed his job. Or more precisely, he tried to change jobs. He quit the hamburger chain restaurant that he had been dissatisfied with. I think it was because he had money in his pocket. For a while, he was living off that money. When he had about a third of the money left, he finally started looking for a job. But even though he went to job interviews, he never found a new job, and he finally ran out of money. He's called me once and cried to me.
Because you unilaterally asked me for a divorce, I'm in a lot of trouble. If you feel bad about it, just please lend me some money.
I see that he still hasn't gotten over his habit of blaming everyone else. I don't feel bad at all, so I won't give you money. I'm happy now and I feel like I'm living my life. You can't keep blaming everyone else like that. Take responsibility for your own life. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. 3 years later, my daughter and her boyfriend got married. They didn't have a ceremony or reception. They said they would use the money to open their own restaurant. At least you should wear a dress, take pictures, or at least take a honeymoon. I'll pay for it.
What? You helped me a lot to open the store. You're supposed to be working for us, so you don't have to do that.
My daughter hesitates. I want to do it. Seeing you happy is what makes me happy. When I said that, she agreed with me with tears in her eyes.
You know, Mom, I've told Dad that I'm getting married. After all, he is my father.
Isn't that good? I split up, so he's a stranger to me, but your father and daughter. Did he say anything?
Yeah, just congratulations. He cared more about you than he did about me. He said he didn't realize how much he appreciated you until he lost everything.
Really? Didn't he say he was unhappy because of me?
No, he didn't. He said he's changed and is working harder than ever.
I see.
I'm hoping one day my father will come to eat at our restaurant.
She's a sweet, positive girl. When my daughter and her husband opened their restaurant, they received a little congratulatory flower from my ex-husband. I almost cried when I saw it, and I thought, if he shows up someday, I wonder if I could welcome him with a smile.